thinking about what I want to say next while I'm doing those. So we're going to do a paraphrasing activity. It's very quick to what we did with Give a Gift. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to find a different partner in the room, and I'm going to ask you to share a story of your name, and anything related to your name you want. It can be very deep and meaningful. It can be fun. For 30 seconds, you're going to tell a story of your name. This activity is not about storytelling. This activity is about paraphrasing, because the person you're telling it to is followed by something. Maybe your answer, maybe connecting to the agenda, maybe asking a question. So let me give you an example of what this is like. So I'm going to tell you a story about my name for 30 seconds. I'm going to ask for a volunteer, if you'd like, to paraphrase what I said, and then another volunteer to ask a question. Now, you do not need to answer the question. But by training, you're training yourself to keep conversation moving. Paraphrasing is never something you do in of itself. You always use it to move on. So here's a story of my name. My name is Matt. All through my childhood, I was teased mercilessly because Matt rhymes lazy as a doormat, silly as a cat, you're fat. I was teased all the time. When my wife and I started our family, it was very important to me that our children not be named something that was. As a teacher, I have a built. So I went into my classroom, I wrote the 3 names that my wife and I were willing to call our kids, and I gave my students 5 minutes to come up with the most heinous, mean, bad rhymes and everything. We named my children the names that had the shortest lists. Story of my name. Is there somebody here who'd be willing to just paraphrase my story? Again, a paraphrase gets to the crux of it. I see your hand here, sir. Yes. Paraphrase. Essentially what he said, for those of you who couldn't hear, is you stress tested your kids' names, right? That's a great paraphrase. What is a reasonable question that you might ask? Yes. What are the kids' names? Yes, I'm not going to tell you because they would be very. Kids are not teased because of their names. Now they're teased for lots of other things, but not their names. How paraphrasing can actually help you listen more intently. So here's what I'm going to ask yourself and the person in your partnership who had to travel the farthest to get to campus for the event. Not this morning. If you're not local, you're staying at a hotel that's close by. But where you came from, whoever 30-second story about your name, your partner will immediately paraphrase a question. You need not answer it, and then you'll switch. This should take us 2 minutes to do. Find a partner, tell a story of your name. Feel to have your story paraphrased. It feels good, doesn't it? It feels good to have your story paraphrased. It feels good. Now, we're not virtual in this room, so we don't have some of those cool features that you have. Do it the old-fashioned way. Will everybody put your fist out like this? This is a yes, thumbs up. Did your partner paraphrase your story of your name? Being almost exclusively thumbs up. I see one sideways and we might have one thumbs down, but there's always one in every crowd. No. How did it feel? How did it feel to listen to paraphrase? How did it feel to do this? Different way. When I looked at all of you doing this, you were leaning in, you were nodding. It was clear. We have the capability to listen well, but we have to encourage ourselves to do it. And when we speak spontaneously, it is completed the first 4 steps of the process. Manage anxiety, get out of our own way, see it as an opportunity, listen well. All of this has to do with mindset. We haven't actually responded in the moment yet. So that's the next. It has to do with structure. Structure is critical. How you put this together matters. Most of us just ramble and give lists when we're put on the spot. And your brain is not wired for lists. Remember, just ramblings. Our brains are actually wired for structure, for story. A story, to me, a structure is nothing more than a logical connection of ideas that has a big. Learn the power of story and the power of structure. When I was an undergraduate here at Stanford many years ago, I was a tour guide on this campus. To this day, I can still walk backwards in a straight line while speaking. They trained us back then for 12 weeks. The most important thing they taught us, they said, above all else, to be a good tour guide on this campus, you must never, ever lose. You are a bad tour guide if you get people lost. The same is true with us as spontaneous speakers you're talking to. How do we pull together? We structure our. Structure helps us orient people and set expectations. If I showed up and I said, "Hi, I'm Matt, I'm your tour guide, let's go," how many of you would go with me? A few because you're adventurous, but the rest of you would be like, "Heck no, where are we going? Do I have the right shoes on? Should I go to the bathroom first?" A good tour guide just sets expectations up front so you can pay attention to what's coming next. Structure also helps us together. The biggest place, most frequent place you will lose people as a tour guide is when you move from one place to the next. People just wander off. The same is true in our words like so, neck, and third as your transitions. Then you are missing opportunities to keep people together. So structure is really an example of a structure, just so you can get your arms around it. Most of us are familiar with a very persuasive structure of problem, solution, benefit. If you've ever pitched an idea, if you've ever watched an advertisement, this is how they go. Problem, solution, benefit. Here's an issue, here's how we solve it, and here's the benefit. That's a structure. End. Now, my favorite structure in the whole world is three simple questions. What is your idea, your belief, your position, your product, your service, your feedback? The so what is why is it important to the person you're speaking to? And then now what is what comes next? Maybe I'll take your questions, let's set another meeting. Let me show you a demonstration. What, so what, now what is a great way to package up information. When you're meeting with your friends this weekend and somebody says, "What are you up to?" It's a great structure to update. Here's what I'm doing. Here's why I think it's important. Here's what I'm planning to do next. In this structure. The feedback is what I saw or what I didn't see. It's important. And the now what is what to do differently. So imagine we come out of a meeting together and you say, "Matt, how'd that go?" I said, "Well, I thought it went really well, except when you were talking about the implementation plan. You spoke quickly and didn't give as much detail as you did elsewhere." When you speak quickly without a lot of detail, people might think you're nervous and aren't as prepared. Next time, slow down and use these two additional. It gives me a good response. Structure is a tool. It's like a recipe. I am a lousy cook. Much better chance of cooking well if I follow a recipe. So by having a recipe, all I have to do is put the ingredients into it. I know how I'm going to give you my feedback. Think about what I say in that. So structure helps you not only package up information for your audience, but it helps you prioritize. Packaged well, your audience can take that information and share it elsewhere. Think of a job interview. When you're being interviewed, not only are you trying to communicate your skills and how you could benefit the company, but you're trying to equip your interviewer with the information that they can then take to the others involved in the hiring decision and represent you. And if you package up that information easily, they can tell your story really. If you just give them a whole list of information, they're likely spontaneous communication. In the new book, the whole second half of it is specific situations, making small talk, apologizing, giving feedback, introducing yourself, and give a structure that you can use. This is the final step, though. The final step is the F word of communication, and it's not that naughty one some of you are thinking about. Many of us, when we speak in the moment, take our audiences on as we're saying it. In other words, we say more than we need to. We need to be focused and concise. My mother has a saying that I love. I know she didn't create it, but it's tell me the time, don't build me the clock. When we are spontaneously speaking, build clocks. One, because we're discovering what we want to. We want people to, we've worked to get we're saying. It is much better to be, one we've already talked about, relevance. If I think about what's really relevant for the audience, then I hinge everything I'm saying on that relevance. Second, you should have a goal whenever you speak, be it spontaneous or planned. It has three parts: emotion, action. What do I want the audience to know? How do I want them to feel? What do I want them to do? So if I'm walking into a room where I expect that I will be asked questions, what do I want them to do? And that helps me focus and prioritize what I'm saying. So it's not enough to just have a structured message. You have to focus that message to help people remember it and to not be seen as rambling and giving too much information. There's another structure I want to introduce you to that is incredibly focused and concise. This is a structure for pitching. I'm often asked by people in the moment. So you're getting on an elevator and your boss's boss steps in and they look at you and say, oh, what are you working on? I'm about to go speak with the board. Maybe
for example,
for these sentences. What if you could, so that, for example, and that's not all. What if you could, that, for example, and that's not all. Let me show you how this works by taking a suggestion from you all, and I'll put it in this structure, and then together as a group, we're going to use this. I'd like to hear a pitch for. What would you like to hear me give a pitch for? Somebody suggest one. My book. Well, look at that. Well, thank you. All right. I appreciate that. So my new book is all about how to speak more effectively in the moment. What if you could be comfortable and confident when put on the spot, so that you could answer questions well, or imagine an upcoming job interview that you nail, that you get all of your points across, really represents who you are. And that's not all. You can apply these principles to small talk, to apologizing, and to even introducing yourself. Do you see how just answering those sentences gets you to a tight, clear pitch? So here's what we're going to do for all of you to thank you for that opportunity, okay? All of us are here at a reunion. Let's imagine for your next reunion, you volunteer to help recruit people to come back to campus for reunion. So you go through each of these four together as a group. Somebody give me the end of this sentence. What if you could You can go to a great communicating in the moment. I love it. Do you see how easy that was? Do you see how the structure? So by on these two messaging elements, structure and focus, you can act better. It's speaking in the moment. Resources for you to continue learning these concepts for the business school. It's called Think Fast, Talk Smart. It's all skills. I get to interview experts from around campus and the world on how to be a better communicator. Dog walking podcast and best commute podcast, because our episodes are very, very concise and short, 20 minutes. We've run some other ones. Make a shot of this QR code. It'll take you to a whole bunch of resources that I make available to our students here and elsewhere. I encourage all of you to think about how you can be a better in-the-moment speaker.
Personal journey, overcoming anxiety. Anxiety weighing heavy? Lighten the load with our support. This course set me on the path to success. Don't wait. Begin your journey today. Comment.
Let my love enfold you in the radiance of my glory. Sit still in the light of my presence and receive my peace. These quiet moments with me transcend time, accomplishing far more than you can imagine. Bringing me the sacrifice of your time and watch to see how abundantly I bless you and your loved ones. Though the intimacy of our relationship, you are being transformed from the outside. As you keep your focus on me, your part is to yield to my creative work in you, neither resisting it nor trying to speed it up. Enjoying the tempo of a God-breathed life by letting me set the pace. Hold my hand in this childlike trust, and the way before you will open up step by step.
Developed in service. Many years ago, the deans came to me and said, the problem is this: our very bright Stanford MBAs answer those cold questions from their professors. You remember back here when people would say, what do you think? And you had to respond. So I dive into research in psychology, anthropology, sociology, improvisation, neuroscience, and came up with a methodology now that all Stanford MBAs within the first 3 weeks of their time here have an opportunity to take, and it makes them feel more comfortable and confident, not just answering questions, but in standing up in class and giving a position when they leave here, interviewing for jobs, giving fees, etc. So it's going to be not just listening to me, but it's going to be participative. And we're going to start, it's not hard, some of you are looking at each other going, pretty simple. I'd like you all to read this sentence. And what's more important to me than the meaning of the sentence is I'd like for you to count the number of F's, the letter F. How many F's do you find? I'll give you 3 or 4 seconds to do it. Keep the answer quiet to yourself. I wish my MBA students were as quiet as they are right now. All right. Shh. Raise your hand if you found 3 F's. How many found 3? Excellent. Very good. Anybody found 5? How about 6? There are 6 F's. What 2-letter word ending in F did many of us miss? So why do I do this activity? Every workshop, every keynote I ever deliver. Why? Exact analogy of what we're going to be doing here today.
Scientific.
Miss little things that make a big difference. Now, the other reason I do this is 14 years ago when I first saw this, I found 3. I felt really stupid, and I like to pass that. No, that's...
Wow.
So we're going to identify little things, big difference to make us more effective in our spontaneous speaking. So I want to introduce you to a 6-step methodology that we can be better at speaking in the moment. Steps divide into 2 categories: mindset and managing. The first step has to do with managing anxiety, taming the anxiety beast. Most people get nervous speaking in spontaneous situations. We have some research that says 85% of people feel nervous in high-stakes situations are lying. So let me ask you this. How do you feel when you watch a present? Now, I know a few of you, people suffer, but most of us, how does it feel? Just shut out. How do you feel when you see a nervous speaker? Okay, so uncomfortable, empathetic, and I heard some people say, I actually feel anxious myself. I call that secondhand anxiety. So our audience can focus on us and not be distracted. So when it comes to managing anxiety, we have to take a 2-pronged approach. We have to manage both. Those are the things that we physiologically experience, what goes on in our body, and sources are the things that initiate or exacerbate that anxiety. Some of you, what happens to you when you get nervous when you put on the spot? I'll start. I blush and I perspire. What happens for some of you? Mouth goes dry. It's plumbing reversal. What's normally dry gets wet, and what's normally wet gets dry. So you get sweaty palms but dry mouth. Really weird, right? What else happens? Yeah, you remember what to say. What else happens? Yeah, you feel your heart pounding. Right? Some of us get shaky. Your body sees speaking in the moment as a flight response. And these are normal and natural responses. But there are things we can do to address these. Now, allow me to share a few with you. The first best thing you can probably do is to take a deep belly breath. On yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, a deep belly breath. And what's interesting is so my rule of thumb, or shall I say my rule of lung, is you want your exhale to be twice as long as your inhale. And if you take 2 or 3 of these deep belly breaths, you'll actually reduce the rapid breathing that causes you to speak faster, and you'll feel calmer. So before you walk into a room where you think you might be asked for feedback or you know questions, this deep belly breath, and it will help. Now, if you get dry mouth and going into a situation where you might have to speak in the moment, drink some warm water, suck on a lozenge, or chew some gum. Obviously, you don't want to do that while you're speaking, but that will help reactivate those salivary glands. If you're like me and you blush and you perspire, hold something cold in the palms of your hand. The palms of your hand are thermoregulators for your body. Just like you ever had a fever and you put a cold compress on your head to cool down. Because you're stressed, you have more going through tighter tubes, your blood pressure goes up. And that causes you to get hotter. It's like you're exercising. So we can reduce the sweating and the blushing by cooling ourselves down. In fact, before I started speaking today, I was holding a cold bottle of water to help. So these are some of the things we can do to manage our symptoms of anxiety. There are, I'll share at the end of the talk, that help you find ways to manage your anxiety.
And I do create this letter as well about tips and tools how to manage stress and anxiety 7 days a week, actionable steps each day. Also, for those of you looking to make passive income online, free blueprint available. Give up the illusion that you deserve a problem-free life. Part of you is still hungering for the resolution of all difficulties. This is a false hope to have trouble. Link your hope to not to problem solving in this life, but to the promise of an eternity of problem-free life in heaven. Instead of seeking perfection in this fallen world, pour your energy into seeking me, the perfect one. It is impossible to enjoy me and glorify me in the midst of adverse circumstances. In fact, my light shines most brightly through believers who trust me in the dark. That kind of trust is supernatural, a production of all wrong. Trust me anyway. I am much less interested in right circumstances than in right responses to whatever comes your way. On my channel, I like to put out positive words for the day. We're a little backtrack, but this is written by Sarah Young, enjoying peace in his presence. Jesus calling. These are written words inspired from the books of the Bible. A positive word for each day of the year, for each year, and so forth. And I'm Aaron Glenn, team member of Team Angie. Private personal consultant, also advocate for mental health awareness as well.
Now, there's another side too. Think about sources. Sources are the things that initiate our anxiety. There are many. Let me talk about one. Many of us are made nervous by the goal of what we educate. My students want to get a grade. The coach want to get funding. You might want to get a new job, or you might want to get your project supported. So what makes you nervous is the fact words. What's making you nervous is a potential negative future outcome. So how do we short circuit that? We become very present oriented. Because if you're in the moment, by definition, you're not worried about the future. So how do we get present oriented? Is to do something physical. Walk around the building before you that job interview. Another way is to listen. Needs to. You can do what I do. I get present oriented by talking to people. Before I got up here on stage, I was talking with many of you. That helps me get present oriented. I can't engage in a conversation and be thinking about what might go wrong in my presentation or Q&A session. Start at 100 and count backwards by 17s. That'll get you present oriented. I know I'm in front of a crowd that's trying. My favorite way to get present oriented is twisters. You can't say a tongue twister right. Some of you are going, uh-oh, that's right. I'm going to ask you to say my favorite tongue twister. I said it right before I walked out here. It warms me up and it gets me present oriented. Some of us assume that we can just go from silence to brilliance without warming up our voices. But you know, if you've ever played sport or exercise or played a musical instrument, you should warm up first. My favorite tongue twister, 5 seconds to say, has 3. And if you say one of the phrases wrong, you'll say a naughty word. So I'm listening to hear. Okay, let's try it. Repeat after me. I slit a sheet.
I said the sheet.
Sheet I slit.
Yes.
And on that slitted sheet, I sit.
No, I said the sheet I slit.
Excellent, said that naughty word, and you all know what it is. So by managing our anxiety, both symptoms and sources, the second step has to do with maximizing mediocrity. We get in our way. I have the audacity in front of my Stanford MBA students on the first day of class to say, maximize mediocrity. Their jaws drop. They've never been told to be mediocre. But why do I recommend this? It boils down to this. We are the biggest impediment to obviously in the moment. We get in our own way. And we do it through all the judging and evaluating that we of the material that we're thinking about saying. We get Here's why this is problematic. Think of your brain as a computer. This is not a perfect analogy. For this point, it works. You know, on your laptops or your phones, when you have a lot of apps and windows open, how the performance of each one of those is a little less good because the others are open? Same is true with your brain. When I'm evaluating and judging everything I'm saying as I'm saying it, I have less cognitive bandwidth on what I'm actually saying. So when we are evaluating ourselves as we're speaking, it's a disservice. Now, be very clear. I am not saying you should never judge or evaluate your speaking. You should. But we can turn the volume to give us more resources so we can be more present and be more effective in what we're saying. Students, at the end, I start with maximize mediocrity, and then I end the class by saying maximize mediocrity, achieve greatness. If you give yourself permission just to answer the question, just to give the feedback, just to have, then you put yourself in a position to do it very well. But when I say to myself, I have to give the right answer, the best feedback, I need to be the most in small talk, it reduces the likelihood that you'll do those well. So step one is on that mental observation and evaluation we're doing, and that puts you in a position to be more present and more engaged. The third step methodology has to do with the fact that many of us see speaking in the moment and in general and challenging. If I were to tell you at the end of the meeting you're running that you're going to get some questions from your audience, many of you aren't like, oh, that's great, I can't wait. You say, oh no, afraid they're going to see what I said is wrong, they're going to challenge me. Many of us see them as threatening and challenging. And when we do so, it impacts not just what we say, but how we say it. We make ourselves harsh because we feel we defend. There's another way to approach this. And before I share with you that way and give you some tools, I want you to actually have an experience of it. So I'm going to ask you to play a very simple improvisation game with me. It's called Give, the experience of giving a gift and get gifts. So you know how to play this game, but we're going to practice. I'd like everybody to take out an imaginary. On of three, I'd like you to just practice giving it. And then to give the gift, you just extend your arms. Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3, give a gift. Perfect, very good. Now when you receive a gift, you do it in reverse. Ready? 1, 2, 3, you've received a gift. Perfect. So here's what we're going to do. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to find somebody sitting near you. You're simply going to introduce yourself if you don't know, and you're going to play the give a gift. Partner will take the imaginary gift, open the box, look inside, look at the partner, and say, thank you for the, and you're going to say the first thing that pops into your head. So you might say, thank you for the car, thank you for the pen, thank you for the airplane. It doesn't even have to fit in the box. Your partner who gave you the imaginary gift, upon hearing it, is explain to you why they gave two acts of spontaneity that happen in this activity. It's your turn to give, you give the gift, your partner receives the gift, they open up the box, they look inside, and they thank you for the first thing that comes to mind. By show of hands, how many of you over half of you raised your hands. Yes. Remember what I said in the previous step, how we want to do well and we want to make sure we're right? So you've got, okay, I know there's going to be a dog bone in my box. That's perfect. I'm done. I want you literally, when you open up the box, to say your mind. I have to tell my MBA students to keep it clean and but I want you to name it. And then your partner, upon hearing, is going to explain. And then you're going to switch. This activity should take 2 minutes. I'll ask you to come back in about 2 minutes. So find somebody sitting next to you, introduce yourself. The earliest this morning goes first. I've learned a long time ago as a teacher. All right, find a person. By the way, for doing this activity, I saw lots of smiles. Looks like you were having fun. Across the audience, and as my hand points in your general direction, will you just call out what you found in your box. I love hearing what people gave themselves. Just start shouting what you gave yourselves. Kleenex, tires, okay. Catnip, I heard. Yes. Pumpkin, notes. Did I hear bra? Dog, poop? Oh. Excellent. You guys gave yourself a Rorschach test too. It tells us a little bit about you. We won't go there. Let me ask you this. How did it feel when you gave the gift and you were waiting to hear what you gave? Many of you looked excited. I see many of you smile. What did I give? What did I give? And then all of you embraced a rule that comes from, I have had wonderful improv teachers here on this campus, Patricia Ryan Madsen, Adam Tobin, Dan experts who've taught me the value of improv. And all of you just executed the #1 rule of improv. Yes, I did not give you a dog bone. No, of course I did, and here's why, right? You embraced it right away. What if, when somebody asked you a question or asked you for feedback, just like you saw this act as an opportunity? Now, I am not naive. I know sometimes people, when they ask us, want to challenge us, they're coming after us. But even in those moments, if I can see it as an opportunity to connect, to learn, to find some area of commonality, it can change everything. I will step in. I will be bigger in my response. My tone will be more detailed. By seeing spontaneous communication as an opportunity, as a gift, not a threat, it changes our entire approach. On the new book I wrote, Think Faster, Talking Smarter, introduce several tools we can use to see things as opportunities. The first comes from this notion of growth mindset, which Carol Dweck on this campus helped to develop and champions. It's wonderful, and her work is fantastic. One area of her work in growth mindset, which really essentially says that when we are faced with a challenge that doesn't go necessarily the way we want it to, we can learn and grow and begin to get better at the build. That's just the way it is. A growth mindset, again, opens to opportunity. And one aspect of it that I really resonate with is this notion of not.
You can get there. Just information. Be sure to support me by subscribing to my YouTube channel. I appreciate it, and all of my new subscribers, I appreciate you as well. Peace and blessings.
By adopting a not yet mindset, opportunities to grow. So when you meet with a frustration in your life, especially around communication, say to yourself, where we see the possibility of connection. So even if you're in disagreement in a negotiation that's happening in the moment, you can look for the we agree. Where is the yes? And from there, build. The third of these comes basketball. Many of you are familiar with Mike Krzyzewski, former Coach K. One of the things with instilling in his play, but in all of sport, is this notion of next play. If you're an athlete, say a basketball player, and you miss a shot, move on to the next play. Because the reality is, if I miss my shot and I sit there thinking about how bad it was, how I should have made it, the other team might be scoring a shot. I have to move to next play. And the same is true when you're in the midst of a conversation, small talk, feedback situation. If something happens that doesn't go exactly the way you want it to, next play. Now, while rumination in the moment is bad, move to the next play, but later that day, reflect what worked and what didn't. Treat our communication as that definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting results. If you don't reflect and learn and think about it, you're not going to change. So in the moment, next play, mistakes. Many of us try to avoid mistakes. Think about it. We learn through mistakes. If you watch kids, they develop, they make lots of mistakes, and that's how they learn. We can take benefit from that as well. But we have to look at them. Rather than mistakes, I'd like you to missed take. In television and film, directors will have the
Personal journey overcoming anxiety. Anxiety weighing heavy, lighten the load with our support. This course set me on the path to success. Don't wait. Begin your journey today. Comment ready. Personal journey overcoming anxiety. Anxiety weighing heavy, lighten the load with our support. This course set me on the path to